In this podcast, I'm talking to an expert on my team, Pablo Martinez, and I want to share a case study on how we helped a manufacturing client go from $80 million to $100 million revenue in less than a year just using Power BI dashboards. Enjoy the podcast. Okay, so Pablo, let's talk about our manufacturing clients. That's a plastics manufacturer, which we helped grow their revenue 25% from 80 million to 100 million, which is absolutely awesome. And we did that through Power BI and data visualization. So let's talk about that, because I think you'll agree we had a really good success there, right?
Absolutely. Thanks, John. Yeah, I think it's a great result. I think what I really like about this client is how open it is to try new things and really deep dive into the problems. Because I think we started probably with just one problem, but then we identified other issues, and he was just happy to just get onto it and really see how he really saw how we can add value through just diving into the data.
Yeah, exactly. When I first had a conversation with them, they actually reached out saying, "Hey, John, we just need help increasing revenue." That was their opening request. So what I always like to do first is just better understand what they really need rather than what they want. And then with your help, we started to really get into understanding what their situation was. So when we started looking at their need to increase revenue, we actually found there's a lot of other problems behind the scenes. So especially around that data, right? And that's when you started getting into their ERP or accounting system as well, yes?
Yeah, I think the first barrier for them was their reporting wasn't great. They were just relying on the ERP, which it looks a little bit like a legacy ERP, and especially on the reporting side, and there's really no flexibility to really improve the reports. And if they really want to improve the report, they need to contact the vendor, and it just costs them money and time. So what we did was to access the database. So it's a on-premise database, and with Power BI, you have the option to connect directly to the database. And on this case, we did it through standard connection, which is called an ODBC connection.
So just to break that down for someone who doesn't know what ODBC, what does ODBC stand for?
It's basically a standard way of connecting to SQL databases, and it's relatively easy to set up. You do need a bit of help from the IT team, from the company. They need to have that set up, but it's something quite standard that any IT team will be familiar with. And then it gets installed in your machine, and you get a credential that you're able to log into the database via Power BI. So
and that first step is important, right? Because when we're working with clients, is we first need to understand the state of their landscape of data, what they need to do, because like I said, the drivers were revenue, but what we actually found is that they were selling products without knowing if it was in stock. They didn't have inventory, which was causing complaints from customers because they were getting short shipped, or they weren't getting deliveries on time because the stock wasn't ready. So then when we got under the covers of the ERP and the accounting system to really look at the data. So when we're assessing that, what did you find originally around the data?
Well, I think it was, I guess, a bit overwhelming. They have a lot of tables in their backend database. So I think what was crucial is that we got help straight away from someone from the company. So we will be able to guide us to, okay, if you're actually looking to you want to see the revenue, okay, this is the table. It's located in this section of the data schema. So I think that's very crucial. So you don't waste a lot of time trying to pinpoint the right data. And there was cases where we actually didn't have the proper tables, so they build us what is called views, which are like combination of tables that can be quickly built by developers and can be accessed as a normal table. So I think the collaboration with them was crucial at that stage to understand where the data is and where exactly we can get it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because you mentioned creating
Mm.
those views of the data. So it's having someone who really understands the data. So when we're working with clients, we have good knowledge, experience of working with many different data sets and types of data. But when we're working, each individual client has configured their data probably slightly differently, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
having that person who knows what these data fields mean, how they've coded them, how they've put the data entry in, because that's one of the challenges I see a lot, is that people are not consistent in how they enter data into their systems. So, like you say,
yeah,
when we work with clients, we always like to have, or we need a subject matter expert, someone who knows the data, just to speed that process along. But then, secondly, most importantly, it also helps with their knowledge transition as well, because we're enabling them to actually run with this going forward once we've finished.
yeah, absolutely. I think for the SME that we were working on, like he actually knew the data, but he never spent time understanding the actual database.
Mm,
So for this person, I think it was very eye-opening to say, wow, this is where the actual data is, and this is where I can then grab it and do whatever I want. I'm not depending on certain reports from the ERP. I can just grab it from there. So that was quite eye-opening for this person.
yeah, exactly. So once we have that, there's initial ground rules set up, we understand the data, you've got the connections with the help of the IT team, or at least you can guide, if they don't have an IT team, you can guide the client through that for those fairly standard connections.
Yeah,
The other key thing is understanding the goals. So we originally talked about revenue, but in reality, we needed to get a better handle on how they're managing their stock and inventory, and ultimately, which would then lead on to machine utilization, product profitability, and revenue. So
yeah.
maybe Pablo, now maybe walk us through those steps. So we've got the initial set of data. What are the next steps to ultimately build up that dashboard to give the client the insights?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as you mentioned, this SME realized that what was really important for him was the supply analytics, so the whole manufacturing process, understanding uh, how well they were fulfilling the orders.
Mm,
So that was at the beginning, I think the first stage of the engagement. So I think once he realized that that's important, it's all about understanding the challenges and the business problem, but and then how we can solve it. It's all about getting the right metrics, so the
mm,
right logics that it will drive the insight.
right.
So um, at that stage, it's crucial to get an agreement and start a really detailed conversation with the SME of what are the metrics that will help you solve that problem.
Mm, right.
And for example, I think at that stage, one of the most important was the lead time, how long it takes the orders to be fulfilled, or the production, how many hours of production time to produce that product.
Mm,
That would then dictate how long it takes to fulfill that order.
yes.
So so that was a very crucial KPI that we managed to build, and then he now has it available in a Power BI dashboard, and it updates automatically whenever he
Mm.
runs it.
And that's a key thing we do with all our clients, actually, is that translation, because the
Mm,
clients have very specific desires, needs, wants around their data. So then we need to translate that into the KPIs. Like you say, we break it down into, okay, what data is needed, how do we
mm,
answer that question, and then formulate it into a dashboard which answers the questions, which in this case is around the profitability by product, or machine utilization, or the stock flows, and
yeah,
ultimately sales revenue and profitability as well.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
so maybe now let's walk into the actual steps in terms of the mechanics of how you built out the dashboard. So we've got
Mm.
the data, we've got those the ODBC connections to the source data. So then what comes next?
Yeah, so once we identify the right tables, views, or columns um, that get ingested into Power BI, and the first step that you must take is use Power Query, which is basically the engine within Power BI that allows you to do the ETL process, as developers call it, so extract, transform, and load. So
Mm,
basically what you do, you grab that data and you clean it and you prepare it in a way that it's ready to first to build metrics or logics based on those columns, and then visualization. So visualizations normally require a very flat table, and sometimes to be able to do that, you do need to manipulate the table. Sometimes the tables are just too granular, so you need to summarize the table, because that affects the performance of the visualization. So it's basically the bulk of the work that, as a data analyst, what I do, that's probably there to really prepare the data and make sure that it's in a format that can be easily read in Power BI for the metrics and for the visualizations.
Yeah.
I think that's the bulk of the work there.
Yeah, and that's an important step, right? That foundation of data quality and format, because a lot of the clients when talking to them, they'll ask me is, why do I have to manipulate this data? Why do I have to go through the effort of doing this? Which in the scheme of things isn't a lot of effort, and we've got tools to accelerate that and the knowledge and expertise. But the key thing is because the current system isn't geared up to do the reporting you need. So you need to translate that data into the Power BI and the Power Query to ultimately have it in a format that works better with those reports. So I think what we're saying, Pablo, ultimately is it's worth that sanity check on the data just to make sure you're reporting accurately, because sometimes the data in your source system isn't accurate, is it?
Absolutely, it's a very important step. And look, for the actual dashboard in Power BI, once you clean up that data and you know the state that it needs to be, it's there. Then it's recorded. It's done once,
right?
And it's all recorded in the steps in the Power BI dashboard, and you just forget, or you basically improve it over time. And another side benefit of going through that process of cleaning and understanding in detail your data is that you can actually improve the system. You can improve the quality of the data,
right?
Through that process. So once you know that there is an issue, you just advise the client and say, look, this is how you could improve your data. And it could be just a system tweak, or it could be actually a process issue. So you have to actually change the way things get done in the company or get recorded. You might have to retrain certain staff that they are key people, that they are actually in the process of generating that data for you.
When they're inputting the data into the system, is making sure they're doing it consistently. Yeah. And it all comes down, at the end of the day, it's just making sure the teams are communicating well to each other. We just happen to use an accounting system or ERP to make that connection. So like you say, when we're going through that data to get it into the Power BI, Power Query format for manipulation, we're actually setting them up with that foundation of helping departments and teams actually work together better, which ultimately increases production and efficiency as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once you show that way of looking at the data in a holistic way, they really see the value on your service, because it's not about producing a dashboard. It's about really providing value overall in the process, in the people, in the data, in your system. So I don't know. I believe that data and what we do is very powerful. It's could be very transforming in organization, and that's why I love doing what I do. So
yes, exactly. There's so much data available, and we use so little of it, but it's coming at us, like a tidal wave of data coming at us. It's how do we pull out those nuggets of business insights? So again, once we go back to that root, the original, that goal of what the company needs, then we build out the data foundation, and then we start to get into Power Query. And then, so what next after we got it into Power Query? We've got that foundation of data. What's the next step after that?
Yeah, so this is what some people say is the fun part. So once you have the data in Power Query, it's ready for you to get into the visualization stage. So normally my way of working is, okay, I got all this data now. I have a good idea of what this client needs. So I'm just gonna build one page with maybe 3-4 visualizations that can really make an impact on this person. because I always say you only get one chance to get a good first impression.
Right.
So
Yes.
basically, don't get overwhelming. Don't build 4 or 5 pages with dozens of visualizations. Just focus on one page with only a couple of visualizations, but that they can actually show how you're solving the problem or you're helping to solve the problem. And so that's where you grab those metrics that you build with the help of the SME, and you really show the visualization that can really demonstrate that, okay, this is where you have an issue. This is the insight that show you how you can improve your numbers or this process or whatever it would be. But normally, and especially with this client that I work with you, that's exactly what I did. So one page, really well formatted with the logo of the company, really trying to make this person appreciate and really like one page. And that's what it's all concentrated. Just focus on that page. And what you want is to, you want that person to be engaged, and you want that person to give you hopefully really good feedback and build on it. So once you have that page, yeah, that's amazing, Pablo, thanks. Can we also add this? What if we try that? And that's when you expand on it and you add more pages or you add new visualizations with the help.
And that's a great point, because it is a great point, because it's very much a conversation when we first share a visualization or chart or dashboard, because for two reasons. One is because the client may not have seen their data represented that way before. So these new charts are creating a whole different dimension to how they see their data, much more graphically, much more visually, which really helps with the insights around, oh, okay, I didn't appreciate that level of revenue or profit or cost in those months over time. So that's the first thing, is, all right, they see it in a different way. And then the second thing is you're seeing data represented from your source system, which, going back to the original point, may not be accurate. So suddenly you're seeing anomalies in the data where maybe profit is overstated or some costs are missed. So you really do need that initial conversation to say, okay, here's our first draft of the dashboard visualization. Let's improve it. Let's figure out what's wrong, what you like, what you don't like. And then it's, like you say, I love that conversation as well, because it's like, all right, we can do this. And you start to go a bit, the art of the possible comes through. So you can pretty much do anything from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one example from this client was originally I didn't put any heat map visualizations, and it was one of his suggestions to, through a kind of heat map, understand where the profit is coming. So you can basically, we built a heat map for products or product lines and customers, so that we actually have now two, and we can probably share it on this podcast. But the customer one is great because on green or very strong green, they can see the most profitable clients.
Yes.
And then on the red, they can see the ones that they can actually improve or try to improve the margins. And so that was very insightful for this client.
And going back to where we started, is when we set out, that wasn't one of the requests of the client. They didn't say, give us the profitability to be a client, but the data allowed that. It was a very easy dashboard to create, visualization to create. So then once we had the profitability by client, we could also do profitability by product, which allowed us to identify low performing products or products that weren't profitable. And then they could start discontinuing those product lines, or where they found there was a lot of stock available, they could actually start to do sales campaigns to actually start to use up stock that was spare, and then focus on the more profitable clients as well. So it really created some amazing insights into how they could grow their business, which ultimately is getting them to that 100 million revenue mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So then once we have the Power BI dashboards, we've had that initial conversation, then it's an evolution, right? So we deliver on that original goal, but then we quickly find, and the clients often come back to say, okay, now we've got this, here's another list of items or list of metrics we'd like to see, and it goes on from there. But we also like to make sure that we're empowering the clients to do this work as well. So that's where we get into Power BI training, which I know you did for this client as well. So Maybe you could share a bit more on that, Pablo, in terms of that training and enablement factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation started because this SME is a very busy person. So I think originally probably this person wanted to have his own dashboard and so on, but he realized there's so much that can be done and there's so much potential that he said, I don't have the time for this. I mean, I would like obviously to have the dashboard and consume it, but to maintain it and improve it, that's probably not, it won't be part of my job. So we engaged, he identified one person, which just started, I think it's finished university, and it's a person that was very curious about it, and he showed a lot of enthusiasm. So that's key. I guess this kind of work is not for everyone. You really need to identify a person that has the potential and the appetite and the right attitude.
And curious.
And curious, yeah. And but the most important thing for me is that sort of analytical mindset to that person that really like, oh wow, this is what the data is showing. What if I do that? What if I do this? Like, the data has to resonate for that person.
Yeah.
To really get the most out of it. And luckily we found this person, and we set up a weekly training session of, I think, 1.5 hours for, I think we did it for 2 months.
Yep.
And that, I think, it's gonna still be ongoing. This person now is on holiday, but I think the feedback was great, and this person, I think, has improved significantly over the last 2 months.
Yeah, and that's an important part, because Power BI is very easy to use. There's a lot of free options, so there's not a lot of cost, if any, to get started, but it does need a certain mindset to use. So a lot of the work we do with our clients is to jumpstart them into that Power BI visualization reporting world, and then either enable their teams through training to keep going, or we can provide that service ongoing. And the real value comes from them. We're enabling our clients to do storytelling with data. It's not just dry spreadsheets coming out of a reporting system. It's actually creating pictures, graphics, which creates stories, which creates business insights to make some real good business decisions, rather than just allowing a lot up to interpretation and subjectivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So typically the next stage, so once you've rounded out the dashboards, like the training, that's when we enable the teams, and then they can go on to more advanced analytics like predictive analytics as well, or machine learning. And that's often a future stage that clients move on to really get insights with customer sentiment and data analytics, predictive analytics as well.
Yeah, that will be exciting when we get to that stage with the client. That will be awesome. Because I think at that time we will be a little bit more mature in terms of the data. We understand much better the data. So for machine learning and those kind of advanced analytics, you really need good data sets.
Yes.
So I think getting to that stage will be quite exciting for the client.
Yeah.
Also, I think one thing to mention is, as part of that journey of sharing the data and getting to advanced analytics, it's also about sharing that knowledge throughout the company and sharing to another departments. We can probably, John, mention about how we're now engaging with the CFO with more financial reporting. And I think in that part, I think what can be challenging is really to engage them as well, because obviously we have the enthusiasm of this senior SME, but sometimes it's a little bit, it takes a bit of time to share that excitement to other senior stakeholders in the company.
Yes.
But I guess we just need to help this SME and start getting into those sessions with the CFO or the senior stakeholders, and they will be able to appreciate in no time the benefit that they can get.
Yeah, exactly. It's a common journey, as you say. Once we start with one team, that team is sharing their dashboards and reports with the senior management team, and then other people want to get involved, and then we see that they want to create dashboards in their own team. So it all comes back to what problem are they solving, which in this case for the finance team, it was very similar, was wanting data they could easily manipulate and report on and drill down on. So it's, once they see that, it drives very quickly.
Yeah, that's right.
So awesome. Yeah. So this is really good, actually. It's as a quick summary of how you stand up Power BI and how we helped a manufacturing client move from $80 million to $100 million revenue in just under a year with the power of Power BI. And so thanks for your time, Pablo, and we'll chat again soon.
Thank you, John. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Let's Talk About It podcast, brought to you by WeDeliverYourVision.com, the go-to place for delivering your vision and getting traction fast.